Why, hello there. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, my name is Mr. Doglet333 and welcome back to Hearts of Iron for the New Order as Mexico. Now last video, our economy kind of started to take a shit. The old kabuki effect. The Yasuda crisis has hit our shores. And it's not fun, let me tell you guys. It really is not something I enjoy particularly. But we'll hopefully be able to Yeah, our base stimulation is starting to fall apart. There goes our unemployment. It was dropping too, but now it's back on the rise. And our debt is starting to act up as well. Boy. But poverty is still going down, it looks like, largely. Let's build some public housing here in the southwest. And, anyway, we're going to get back to our little lore read-through. Let's go, I read Guadalajara. Did I read this one yet? I don't think I have. I was going to read these... Well, actually, I haven't read this one, actually, but I was going to read this one and this one. And I'm going to hope that I haven't missed any of these. I don't think I've done this one. I got a couple I got to read. I'll start reading them so we can actually get on with it. We'll do Puebla. Formerly known as Iroca Puebla de Zaragoza, the capital city of the free and sovereign state of Puebla, is one of humanity's oldest still standing planned cities. Located on the path from Mexico City to the vital Atlantic port of Veracruz, the city of Puebla calls itself a reliquary of the Americas, due to its storied history and varied architecture. From the Mexican Baroque cathedrals, sitting on the grounds of a starkly modernist Universidad Iberoamericana, it is certainly a deserved title. For those less familiar with Mexican history, they will know that Puebla best is a site where the 6,500 elite forces of the Second French Empire were defeated by 600 Mexican soldiers on the 5th of May, 1862. A date that is internally celebrated in Puebla and suburban American cookouts as Cinco de Mayo. I always preferred Cinco de Cuatro personally, but Cinco de Mayo is cool too. In terms of the Mexican economy, Puebla has, like many major Mexican cities, experienced a massive manufacturing boom. The Ford Motor Company, in particular, has just recently opened the largest Ford plant outside of the United States in the city. The fourth largest city in Mexico seems to be eternally on the rise. Well, we also have Cuernavaca. Small towns often have incredible histories. Going back to the pre-Hispanic era, Cuernavaca has been the site of battles and important cultural developments. This is where the Aztecs clashed with neighboring peoples. Cortez built the first colonial structures. Rebels made their stands in the turbulent post-revolutionary era. Zapata threatened the capital, and American expatriates lounged about in the interwar. Now a new era dawns in the sleepy city. Along an important connection between Mexico City and the rest of the Valley of Mexico, the city now experiences an arrival more powerful than the armies it has seen clash before. The highway. Miles of asphalt are poured here every day, and more people pour into the town in large amounts to pave the roads to cater to the cars that ride on them. This is the call of Cuernavaca, and where centuries of men fought and died, this highway will now bind the land together. Well, there we go. I'm going to go ahead and get this timer going. Now, if I'm not mistaken, yeah, we have 12 days until Puerto Playa invasion kicks off. What the hell do those bastards think they're doing? Lopez Mateos tossed a newspaper down on the desk with such fury that Salinas nearly jumped out of his seat. The president then leaned against the arm of his chair, face half covered by a hand clutching his temples in the desperate hope his pounding skull might cease its hammering for 1 second and give him a moment to think. Your Excellency, Ordaz carefully said, I will make some calls. I'm sure once they're reminded of their duties to the party and the nation, things will settle. Settle? Madrazo and his cronies have already turned this disaster into an inferno. You can't take away words. Look! He reached over to take hold of a newspaper, spinning it around and slapping his hand against the bold letters of headline. Madrazo supports neutrality, declares the government has sold itself. Right there, in bold print. He blames me for the Japanese fucking up the economy. How is that my fault? How is any of this my fault? So Ordaz reached over to take hold of the newspaper himself and began reading. Salinas leaned forward. Your Excellency, I know the situation seems dire. We will get through this. Economic swings come and go, and the people will quiet down once normality returns. And it will return eventually once things settle. Just as Lopez Mateos began to allow himself to feel that there may be a glimmer of hope in Salinas' words, Ordaz spoke up. Your Excellency, you'll want to see this. On the second page was a larger picture of Lazar Cardenas. Just below it was a headline which read, General Cardenas joins Madrazo, supports neutrality. Make those calls and stop them. Years in service to Trujillo and knowing the man on a personal level after marrying El Chivo's niece had taught Jose Rene Pupo Roman Fernandez, Secretary of the Republic's Armed Forces, that the aging tyrant's a man of a rigid schedule and habit. It also taught him that any break from routine should be cause for fear, especially if you're working to bring him down like Roman was. Which is why when the old man, during his traditional walk across the Malecon of Ciudad Trujillo, suddenly stopped and asked his beloved nephew-in-law to take a drive with him. Pupo could feel his blood turn to ice. He wanted to scream, run, hide, fight, but even now, while Huffy's presence, his authority was too much. The general entered the luxurious car and silently drove with the goat to what he was sure to be his grave. Instead, the road took them near to San Isidro Air Force Base, one of the homes of the Generalissimo's proud and beloved Air Force, before stopping close to a small lake of sewage near the base, the smell nauseating even from the car. After stepping out of the car with him, Trujillo eyed him closer and closer to the waste-filled water, before telling him to step inside of it, near the pipe spewing it out. Pupo did so silently. After stepping inside and feeling all the filth wash and splash onto his once pristine uniform, Pupo's face twisted in a mix of nausea and humiliation. The tyrant seemed to be doing all he could not to laugh, sneering at his Pupo, lecturing his general on the importance of appearances, down-dressing him for the filth seeping into his uniform, and for letting it get so close to his beloved airfield, his eyes betraying the excitement he felt from the power he held over Pupo. Not just him, but an arrangement of officers who were forced to watch the affair with barely disguised discomfort, unwilling to look away. Pupo knew he was not dying that day, but it did nothing to quell the rage and hatred in his heart. He held on to a single thought. Soon. Well, here goes the Blink to Walk Blitz. One might not think that an economic upset in East Asia would cause turmoil in the government of Mexico and Ocean HoI, but here Manuel Telo Barad was, looking warily down every hallway. Oh god, our poverty is back where it was at the start of this. That sucks. Looking warily down every hallway in order to gauge whether or not he was walking into some political trap. As foreign minister, Barad had a job to do during the turmoil elicited by the Yasuda crisis, deciding on a hallway that didn't look as though anyone was waiting to ambush him inside. The last thing he needed was to be assailed by some rube trying to win political points. The Palacio Nacional itself was filled with signs of people scrambling to manage the situation as one might expect, but there were only brief glimpses of the real chaos. The faint cacophony of telephones ringing was audible just about everywhere in the building, and here he was almost knocked over multiple times by the many secretaries racing to relay some news to whoever. As he moved from place to place and spoke from person to person, he got the occasional glimpse of a storm he knew well fine what was brewing within the Pre. A pair of men shiftily swapping messages, one of whom he was sure he recognized from Ortiz's men in his office. A secretary finding an envelope on their desk, turning pale and reading it in stunned silence, giving some task Barad would rather not know about. They were all moving now, Barad knew. The Japanese had fired the starting pistol without even realizing it. The factions within the Pre were swarming to secure their positions. It would be a bloody affair, but would decide the next sexennial. So, of course, everyone would be in on it. Talking to an aide about correspondence with Tokyo, Barad spied a person approaching from up the corridor that he knew for a fact was close to Madrazo. Politely bringing the conversation to a close with an order, he slipped through a nearby door and passed a pair of offices, moving swiftly on to his next task. As foreign minister, Barad had a job to do, and it didn't involve trickery. Dear esteemed Undersecretary Rojas de Bilbao, we hope you are doing well in this brief period of economic turbulence. The health and well-being of our civil servants, especially those occupying such a lofty perch as the inside of a national palace, is of great importance. Times such as these have often led to panic and ill decision, causing undue damage to the body, which for those of our profession ripples outward to the body politic. This potentially leads us to our present concern, of which we are writing thereof. It is our understanding that your esteemed person is currently in possession of an unfinalized report concerning the effects of the Japanese economic downturn on the mineral sector, pending revision and submission to the Office of the President. While perhaps correction in some purely material figures, the conclusion it reaches are short-sighted towards the long-term benefits of cooperation and integration within the Asian market. To leave this paper unaltered in the hands of the President would be to sign one's name on a short-sighted implication which may damn Mexican economic growth for the foreseeable future. We would like to avoid implicating your good name in such a decision. Similarly, we would like to avoid any unfortunate implications arising from a set of photographs taken on the 10th of February 1963, which we have intercepted from an attempted blackmailer. You will find copies alongside this letter. Knowing your good character, we understand you would never engage in extramarital relations or ingest restricted narcotic substances on the date specified, nor would you do such a thing on September 5th of last year, March 23rd of this year, or the previous Tuesday to this time of writing. The press, sadly, may not be as understanding. With this in mind, we encourage you to deal with this report in a manner according to the values of the party, economic prosperity, and Mexico, and of course, your upstanding moral character. Sincerely, a friend. Your Excellency, I'm afraid it's urgent. The effects on the sector could prove disastrous for long-term economic planning. The necessary changes cannot properly go ahead without presidential approval. I'm sorry, Secretary, but President Lopez is in an urgent meeting currently and is under strict instructions not to be disturbed. We are more than capable of handling this issue ourselves. However, given the recent doubts concerning Mexico's relationship with Japan, we feel it would be best for the President to look it over personally. It is only correct to feel uncertain about this proposal, so we dare not push ahead without your input. I'm afraid the President's schedule is completely filled for today, Secretary Ordaz. However, I'm sure I can pencil you in for tomorrow morning. It's a big expenditure, I understand, but these are Guangdong machines at a price they'll never reach again. They could replace half the blow administration, and machines can't take bribes. Come with me. I've done the numbers myself. I assure you this will be worthwhile. Your concerns over our infrastructure is laudable, Licenciado Sierra, but the President is currently indisposed. He has the utmost belief in your talents and those of the relevant governors. Oh, really, it's nothing. A stupid technicality. You shouldn't really have to be there for, but you know what the national mood is right now. Gotta be seen dotting the I's and crossing the T's, you know? I understand the needs of the interior are great, Secretary Ordaz, but yours is but one secretariat among many. The President cannot afford to have his time monopolized by yourself or by any other group of individuals. Damn. Let's prove working standards. I'm gonna check. Yeah. It's looking good for This is a new one. Well, not Cardenas, not. That's a different one, but we got a war with the Cyclone. Carlos C. Madrazo, governor and friend. He's a jack of all trades, excellent public speaker, administrator, and statesman. He's transferred the state of Tabasco from a rural backwater into an economic powerhouse. Amid all the farcical advice of Ordaz and Salinas, Madrazo is offered a clear, reasonable voice. So it is he who I lend an ear to the most. This man is no doubt becoming a powerful instrument of the party, my agenda for the party. Consider him as a candidate for the presidency. Perhaps he can replicate his outstanding success nationwide. Guess we haven't read this yet, I think, either. The governor of Tabasco, the typhoon of the South, Carlos Madrazo, is the rallying point for the party reformers calling for change, and as such, I now consider him another option for my successor. Despite him being the most ideological similar to me, his hot-headedness could cause some trouble. Well, we'll cross that road when we get there, I think. How's our economy looking right now? I don't want to bloat things too bad, so if I do that and cut taxes, we still save on some money. We'll be able to pay off that debt a little bit. It's not spectacular growth by any means, but I think it's really the best option we got right now. I could do civilian austerity too, I suppose. Civilian spending factor is really the biggest shit we take. Yeah, we'll do civilian austerity as well. With everything currently going on, the last thing the Pre needs is a technocratic rabble-rouser like him in the mix. Put simply, Salinas simply cannot be allowed to remain. Selling us out to the Japanese when their whole economy's in flames. Something needs to be done about Salinas. Betraying everything the party stands for. You have to do something because that smug son of a bitch can go blurted another. Before Alfonso Corona del Rosal slammed down the receiver of his phone. It'd been like this for days. The Pre was in knots, and as the president of the Pre, he felt them tightening. The latest order of the day, as Del Rosal had been informed through a multitude of in-person visits and phone calls, was that Salinas had to go. Initially, he hadn't planned it to do anything. He might not like Salinas that much, but move against Salinas was only going to piss off President Lopez Mateos, encourage more of this factional squabbling. Of course, people kept coming from the groups against Salinas, complaining more and more. The pressure was on him now to do something about it. Where there was a problem, there was a solution. The problem was Salinas. Del Rosal figured it was worth looking at those who opposed him. Chief among them, of course, were Madrazo and Ordaz. Opposed individuals in the succession battle, maybe, but their camps were more alike than they were Salinas. Those two could perhaps be united against Salinas. Del Rosal picked up his phone receiver again, preparing to dial a number, a meeting. He'd organized a meeting between the two in secret, and he'd work from there. Get me Carlos, and tell me where I can find Gustavo. Oh. Here we go. God of power and mercy, maker of love and peace. Born in 1943 in Mexico City, young Andre Santana had to contend with a world built on the backs of exploitation and intentional ignorance. His father was constantly burned out from his job assembling car doors in the Ford plant. His mother worked part-time as a maid to an expat family from Kumamoto. His older brother hawked wood carvings on the street. But his grandfather was a proud peasant who had refused to take the abuse from the haciendas and joined the División del Norte. To hear him tell of the time on his horse with a .30-30 carbine, Andre's grandfather was one of the last of a generation of men before modern capitalism had broken their backs. To know you is to live, and to serve you is to reign. The white sands of Puerto Playa stretched as far as Andre could see, dividing the Dominican city from the endless blue sky and seas. By his side were men of every type and persuasion, Mexican boys like him, veterans of the Cuban Revolution, Dominican dissidents, revenge-seeking Haitians, and Yankees just willing to fight. There was more than the vaqueros and American cowboys grandfathers stood with. The whole of the Americas was coming together to destroy tyranny, injustice, ignorance. Through the intercession of Michael the Archangel, be our protection against all evil. But Andre's stomach was in knots. He was not in Mexico City. He was in a foreign land, in a hostile land full of fascists and Hitlerites who want him dead. If he made a mistake, he would die. He was marching towards the Faro, the iconic lighthouse of the city. Perhaps his training was the only thing that kept him moving and not collapsing from fright. Help me overcome war and violence and establish your law of love and justice. The black Sim Volkswagen were coming down the road. Andre's commander yelled for him to take cover. As Andre sighted the lead car of his AR-10, he finished his prayer. Hopefully not his last. Grant this through Christ our Lord. Amen. Legion's invasion of the Dominican Republic has begun. New decisions have been unlocked. Also receive a medium opinion boost from leftist and nationalist. Oh, medium. That's a 2-pointer, looks like. Alright, foreign policy. Alright, let's go ahead and we'll liaise with the June 14th movement. Smuggle in some weapons and supplies. And we'll save up to provide some intelligence. And here we go. Delversal looked from one man to the other. Do we have a deal? Grudgingly, his interlocutors nodded. No wonder it was grudging. Even the two men, Carlos Madrazo and Gustavo Diaz Ordaz, had much gain from blocking Raul Salinas Lozano out and scuppering his plans to sell Mexico out of despair. But that did not lead Ordaz and Madrazo to completely or even mostly forget the very large gulf in opinion that sat between them. The fact of the matter was that fellow pre-grandees thought they were. Madrazo and Diaz Ordaz disagreed fundamentally. Ordaz found Madrazo's idealism ridiculous on a good day, a sign of mental illness on a bad day. Madrazo, on the other hand, found Ordaz's ruthlessness to be at best excessive, and a worse than outright betrayal of the institutional revolution. But that gulf of opinion was not enough to cause them to fight in the presence of a common enemy, that of Salinas and his democratic mumbo-jumbo. For the sake of Mexico and to preserve their own chances at power and influence, Ordaz and Madrazo would work together. So it was resolved. No need to make an enemy of the enemy of your enemy. Very true. Well. Javier, get over here. We were wondering when you're going to finally show up. Andres, one of Javier's former co-workers, waved him over to one of the corner tables of the bar. I haven't seen you since the factory shut down. How have you been? Andres' cheeks were as red as the fluorescent lights that hung outside the entrance to the bar, and he swayed between two more of Javier's co-workers who were equally as drunk. I've been trying to find ways to keep myself busy, Javier said as sincerely as he could. What he really meant was that he had done very little beyond begging for work where there was none. I heard from Roberto that a few of you were getting together, and I thought I'd join. I think one of you could pass me the whiskey. Andres was more than happy to oblige, pouring Javier his own glass before sliding the cloudy brown liquid across the table. Javier took no time at all to down it, letting it burn his throat on the way down. After a few more shots intercut with some light conversation reminiscing about their work at the Mitsubishi factory, Javier's head was finally swimming as all thought of his woes were washed away. Hey Javier, I heard from a friend of a friend that if you're looking for some quick cash, someone's paying big money to anyone who can join some sort of protest in Mexico City that's starting soon. As long as you're waving some sign or shouting anti-priest slogans, you'll get the cash. What do you think? As suspicious as that sounded, Javier needed the money. He needed it soon. His landlord had given him only a few more weeks to make up the money for rent, and he barely had enough saved as it was for food. This might just be what he needed to keep himself on his feet until he found stable work. To hell with it. I'm in. And here we are, Puerto Playa invasion. The collapse of the triumvirate has upturned much of Europe's geopolitical position. The aftershocks still ripple. Now crossing an ocean, the Dominican Republic under Rafael Trujillo has long acted as a gateway to the Americas for the former European Axis powers, overseeing trade agreements while evading a board of assassinations orchestrated by the U.S. Trujillo's luck today seems to have run thin. The Caribbean Legion, an army of anti-fascist volunteers led by the Spanish Republican exile Alberto Bayo, have landed in Puerto Playa, intending to oust the Generalissimo. In conjunction with them, the American and Cuban air forces are collaborating in bombing runs on key Dominican positions in the north. As reports of mutinies and revolts trickle in from inside the Dominican Republic, it is clear that the fight for its future has now begun. Time to finish off Trujillo for good. Well, they're making some good pushes so far. Look at that. Is that an encirclement in the north I see? I think it might be. You know, when things started, Salinas chalked it up as just a minor bump. One of those rare 1 in a million chances that happen, but never actually cause any long-term problems. However, there comes a certain point where those coincidences seem to be more than simply that. Sure, Ordaz, Madrazo, and their cronies may vote together to block his agenda once or twice, but then it's followed by massive amounts of squabbling. Now imagine his surprise when he was hearing rumors that the two of them united against him. Him, of all people. What did they think he was? He knew that the longer this pact existed, his influence would dwindle more and more, each day passing did nothing but to serve as a reminder to this fact. That didn't mean that he would lie down and let those two dismantle him and his chances. Raul just needed to find something that would take the fight to them. He predicted it wouldn't take much to make the two factions return back to their shouting matches. All he could do now is wait. Mexico will drive over all bumps, like it has always done. Like I did in June of 2018. And kept driving. And I didn't notice anything. Is it already over? Oh, shit. God in heaven, Trujillo, 6 feet under. Got a couple things to worry about first. Mateo strolled around his office, taking a look outside the window and trying to clear his mind to focus on the predicament in front of him. Sure, he had tried to keep both sides happy, but there were some things that were bound to fall apart eventually. Technically, there were some things. There were countless numbers of economic pros to choose from, but they all fell into two general camps. On one end, Ordaz and Madrazo proposed to continue with the old policies of investment in the countryside, all the while cutting the weaker parts of the budget and rallying the party behind it. And this was something he personally could get behind, as well as many of the other old members of the PRI. Now, there was another option that, while he may not like, might be necessary. Salinas, who was in the second camp, rallied his technocrats around him and was more radical in terms of how far he wanted to go. Restructuring the web of the Mexican economy itself, Lopez Mateos wanted to dismiss it entirely. Not for the economists in his circle being an overwhelming support of the idea. He couldn't tiptoe around the camps any longer. Now he had to pay the price of choosing one side or the other. Why change something that works perfectly? The Kabuki crisis will continue to evolve, but I don't trust that economist. So we'll rally the party. The Kabuki crisis can be found in decision tabs in Levive and GUI. So our opinions of Ordaz and Madrazo will each increase by 1. Interesting indeed. Ah. So it looks like we don't get a choice. It looks like it's all been decided on our previous focuses. Interesting. Ordaz and Madrazo have developed a mutual understanding between them. Despite representing largely different wings of the party, the establishment of the Cardenista wing, respectively, the two men have come to see Salinas as their biggest threat. Salinas seeks to tarnish the ideals of the Mexican Revolution. His technocratic vision does not represent the people, and the mass privatization that would result would surrender control of the country to Japanese business interests and Salinas' cronies. The two men must put aside their differences for now if they are to stop Salinas' race for the presidency. They will now start by addressing the current crises and garnering public and party support before Salinas can. let's start with lowering interest rates. It's economic orthodoxy that nearly everyone agrees with. In these times of financial troubles, interest rates must be lowered to ease the burden borne by debtors. Many of whom are on the brink of insolvency. With the weight of crushing debts lightened, they will have a chance to regain their financial footing. Simultaneously, borrowing will appear a much more desirable option to investors. More significant investments that will result will help grow the country out of the pit it is in. Some disagreement exists within the party to the extent of the rate cuts, but the situation is urgent and action is needed now. The goat should have been here by now, snarled Tony embarrassed. He sat both hands behind the wheel of the Biscayne, staring intently along the road to St. Cristobal. 20 minutes, not a single pair of headlights had passed since he last spoke, saying that exact phrase. And as before, a perfectly still Amado replied from the back seat that Trujillo was coming. From the passenger's side, Antonio de la Maza lit up a cigarette. Give him a rest, Tony. Modesto Diaz told us he'd be here. From his perch, De La Maza would have the first shot on him. Disturb him sleep, or perhaps in prayer, Salvador answered, Diaz? He's practically at the center of the government. How? Don't get all hidey-mighty, Turco. We've all collaborated. De La Maza cut him off. An awkward, angry silence lingered. He ashed his cigarette and said, Imagine how much worse it is for Pedro Olivio. Waiting out there all alone in the fucking Oldsmobile for hours, on the off chance we miss a damn baby blue Toyota. That Toyota Crown cruised on. The aged man slept fitfully in the back seat. He had not needed to sleep so much before this war. Before Castro and the filthy communists, the Yankees and the damn Mexicans started sinking this land back into the chaos and poverty he raised it from. He felt so old, but the schoolgirl waiting for him at San Cristobal would make him feel young again. Oh yes. He had chosen well tonight. And officials knew by a daughter. His reveries were disrupted by a blast of a horn and numerous shouts. Drunken hooligans? No. Old instincts sent his hand to the revolver, but the rear window exploded in a hail of glass and pain. Ding dong. The wicked bitch is dead. Interesting. The Revolutionary Front owns Ciudad Trujillo. The fact that they both have the same flag is going to bug me a little bit. Also, I don't know. Maybe one of you guys knows in the comments. I'll ask this before I go. Does Haiti ever get this little bit back? Any of you know, just let me know down in the comment section below. As well as just let me know if you enjoyed this video. I gotta end it here, sadly, but thanks as always for watching. Oh, jeez, we got a lot of options here. Look at that. Anywho, I gotta go ahead and leave things there. But thanks as always for watching. Like if you like, dislike if you didn't, leave any comments or feedback down in the comment section below. I read all the comments I get, and I appreciate any feedback you might have for me. Check out my links down in the description box below. And yeah, that's gonna be it for now, my friends. I will see you all in the next video. Good night, and bye-bye.